Pole position as we check the latest numbers for the governors on both sides of the Hudson, and the headlines for Christie and Andrew Cuomo. Well, the numbers not great, not terrible, but not great. All things considered, with some of the headlines we've seen, especially for the guy in Jersey, they could be worse. Now let's talk about Christie. His approval rating stands at 50% in the Garden State, and that's now 2+ months into the GW Bridge scandal. But here's the bad news. His numbers have dropped 9 points in just a month as the scandal's details have gotten wider play, and he's way down from his all-time high of 70%, that from just a year ago. Let's talk about that. Dominic, tell the truth. Would you have thought they'd be even lower, given all the headlines and bad press here that we've seen? Really?
No. If I'm Team Christie right now, I'm scared to death because he's right at the threshold of drowning. 50% is the measure that they consider you're safe, and the moment you go under 50, there's blood in the water. So he's right there. He doesn't have any more ground to lose.
But if the story doesn't get worse for him,
good point.
Numbers pick up, right?
I don't think so.
I
think he's done.
The story by definition gets worse for him because it continues.
Right.
There's no way, like, you're not going to come up with something where they're exonerate the governor all of a sudden tomorrow. They're going to keep getting drip, 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 as we've talked about many times on this show. Every drip hurts.
I think in the meantime, you start focusing on his job approval rating, what he's doing. You know, recently we heard about Sandy and folks in New Jersey not being happy with the Sandy results. So remember, Christie's looked at as being an effective governor. And when he can no longer be effective, I think that's the next danger. Not so much the scandal. I think we got a long ways before we figure out what happens. And I think at the end of the day, you know, it's going to be shown that he's telling the truth, but I think it's how effective of a governor can
These
be
guys
now.
will tell you, the next story as the committees are going to be doing their investigations are going to be two. One is they're going to do the detail part because no one's afraid of Christie anymore. People used to be afraid, and they wouldn't go to the press complain about stuff. They're going to complain about how the Sandy funding was allocated, and you got a lot of lawmakers who can't wait, okay, because it's payback time. The other story is, and if you notice in the Times today, it mentioned the administration, but there were a bunch of stories where people are saying, wait a second, who's getting these contracts? How is this process working out? Even for judicial appointees, it's how the gears of government work in Jersey. And they've always worked in a funny way in Jersey, not just with this governor. I think that's going to be a story too. So from my end, Michael, if there's the overall question of political patronage we just talked about, inefficiency in terms of how you do with it, or favoritism, and then finally all-out corruption, whatever you want to call the GW Bridge scandal, then I think that's a trifecta. It's really hard to get past.
The aura of invincibility has faded. I think people are still afraid of him. He's a sitting governor. New Jersey governors are very powerful. They appoint their attorney general. AGs are not independently elected there. And they have these bi-state authorities. And the way the media markets work between New York City and Philly, Jersey really is its own space, which has bred this sort of power brokering and bossism. There are subpoenas involved. There are special investigators and prosecutors. Unless they catch him in a lie, or unless it was shown he personally ordered this, or there was a briefing and he knew about it, it'll ride out.
I'm not trying to make this a legal panel, but I know a lot of attorneys who say, show me the actual crime.
Right. You had overzealous.
I'll be here.
Abuse of power is one thing, but where's the crime?
Overzealous aides did something, it happens. But the aura of invincibility is gone, so now they're taking a harder look at things like no-bid emergency contracts and how judicial appointments are done, and that can get or seem tawdry, but elections are about matchups. So we're looking at something.
I know we got to get to Cuomo, but I heard from somebody I trust on this to say it was really important that he did the town hall and he didn't get crushed at the town hall, and the people didn't keep pressing on the issue of the bridge. You agree with that? That it actually mattered because it's a pulse of the people? It matters.
He needs to do more of those. But his people, they're still selectively filtering the message. People that wanted to hold up the resign signs, they took them away from them. If you're going to do the town hall, it's got to be straight up and let people do what they want to do.
No, it doesn't. No political operative wants to do it that way.
Let's go to New York now, from the governor who won re-election last year to the one who's up for it this year. Of course, I'm talking about Andrew Cuomo. And these are not the numbers that Cuomo was hoping to see, but hardly something that a lot of other governors wouldn't die for. His favorability rating sitting at 60%, not a bad number, but it's his highest, or I should say lowest, as governor. His job approval rating, it's underwater. More people disapprove than approve of the job he's doing. Now, That's one side of the ledger. But that isn't looking like it's going to be a big problem for him come November. He leads his likeliest Republican opponent, we spoke quite a bit about him last night, Rob Astorino, by, get this, 42 points. And if Donald Trump, Andrew's favorite, gets in, the margin, 44 points. I guess it's two different numbers. Maybe he's not as beloved as he once was, but compared to the alternative, people aren't doing cartwheels.
I think the sheen is off a little bit, and certainly that's going to happen 3+ years into any administration, a president, a governor, whomever it might happen to be. Part of the numbers head-to-head against Trump and Astorino are because they're not candidates yet, and because a lot of people don't know who they are. So I think it's still Cuomo's race to lose or to win as he sees fit. I just wonder if there's not a little possibility that these numbers show there could be an opportunity for an Astorino or a Trump or a Palladino, given the right mix of circumstances.
I'm curious, Richard, is it that Republicans say, hey, if they only get to know Rob, or is it more, you know what, we just don't have the horse to beat Cuomo this year?
No, look, we all know anything can happen in politics, and there's a case to be made why Rob
start off with the
Astorino.
re-endorsement. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's my turn. Why Rob Astorino should run for office. I mean, you look at the SAFE Act, and many people are very upset about having what they see as a violation of the Second Amendment. You look at Cuomo Core or Common Core. You look at the upstate jobs, the economy, even in New York City. That New York City's not getting any money from the governor's budget, yet the unemployment is horrific in New York City.
Yeah, I'm sure
so
New
what
York
about?
City's not going to vote for Cuomo. They're not going to vote for the Democrats.
Well, we only need 30. As a Republican, you only need 30% in New York City. So there's a case to be made. And if I'm Donald Trump, he's a nationally known figure. Anybody who hasn't heard of Trump, I mean, it's ridiculous. So if I see I'm down by 44, I shouldn't run because my name has been out there forever. That's very scary. I mean, I know he's not going to run. He shouldn't even.
The governor's at 60%, not having spent a dime of campaign money.
Hey, I disagree with that.
Well, yes,
Look at those public
commercials.
ads. Yeah, he's using public dollars.
You mean like stronger than the storm?
But he's years into his term, and you're making decisions. Upstate and some suburban communities are upset about the SAFE Act. The teachers' unions don't love him. Some unions do. But elections are about choices. This is an academic exercise until people actually have to make a decision.
Is he safe enough that he can run as a national candidate, or does he still have to run just as New York? I mean, that was part of what people said with Christie. He was running a campaign not to get back to Trenton, but to make a national, to run up the score here and to be some national figure.
They have done such an effective job at managing those expectations by not appearing on some shows and just refusing to entertain them. Any shows. Well, in his way, Bloomberg also did.
Yeah.
He did the Rambling radio show. Otherwise, he didn't really make himself available. Governor Cuomo becomes a national figure by winning big in New York. It's New York. He's not running in South Dakota.
Let's talk about the Hollywood fundraiser he had. So he steps out a little bit. I mean, come on.
That's where the money is.
Richard, all I can tell you is 3 years in, going into his 4th year, and you have a 60% approval rating. Every elected official I know would love to have a figure like that.
Dominic said the only thing that the governor's got to watch out for is his own temper. You agree?
I think every politician needs to watch out for their own temper.
Very politically astute
Very
answer.
good answer.
Okay.
Very good answer.
All right, pick a president. Democrats on the campaign trail all across this country here. I'm not talking just for governor. I'm talking House races, Senate races. They're faced with a choice. Which president would you want coming to your district to help you get elected? I'm not just talking about the current president. I'm also talking about number 42. Those two guys on your screen, you imagine you're in tough districts. Who's going to help you come November? Stay tuned.